Indeed we are.
You good? Good. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the York County Board of Commissioner meeting for April 1, 2025. Roll call, please.
Rhodes.
Present.
Aye.
Here.
Burgess.
Here.
Bowman.
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Here. Open meetings law is posted on the south side of our chambers. It is in the hallway outside of our chambers and also on our website. Next up, we need to review and approve the minutes of our March 18th, 2025 Board of Commissioner meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Burgess.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes. Also, I skipped past it. The proof publication was in the newspaper March 27th and also on our website. Next up, we need to adopt today's agenda.
Move to adopt.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bowman.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes. Officials forum. Flip a coin. Morning, Art.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have much to report other than we're trying to do a little crack sealing on the asphalt. Mother Nature isn't working real well with us today, but that happens. Hauling gravel out onto the road, trying to get over the roads with the maintainers to get everything back into shape after our little tiddly the other day. Other than that, it's kind of the normal operating procedures out there.
Thank you, Art. Any questions for Art? Enjoy. Gary.
Good morning.
Good
Gary
morning.
Peterson, Emergency Management Director, Seward, York County. Just a little follow-up, we had the weather services right on the 19th, unfortunately. A lot of power outages, and so we did a disaster declaration mainly for the power companies. They're gonna have a lot of damage to seek reimbursement, once we get that federal disaster declaration, which we should. We just haven't gotten it yet. The county has a threshold level which we exceeded, and of course the state has a threshold level too, they have to exceed the damages, so. This week, they're gonna start the preliminary damage assessments. So each of the entities that are gonna seek reimbursement are gonna have to fill these out and work with the state. The state will tell them what's eligible, what's not. So, then once that's done, then they'll keep proceeding forward and try and get reimbursement. I've had some inquiries from citizens, about reimbursement, but I don't foresee there being anything for citizens, which is, you have to have something really major to get anything for that, so. But we had a grant for weather radios giveaway through my Southeast Regional Emergency Manager. We started with 129 of them, and I could use another 50. We ran out.
Okay.
And so I don't know if we'll try another grant but yeah, we had a great demand, especially after the storm here. So, but we'll try and do something else if we can, get another grant fund for those. So. But and the public entities talked to Harvey a little bit about doing a hazard mitigation application, maybe for a generator out there. First thing we have to do is a notice of intent. And then if the state approves that notice of intent, then they have to fill out an application for the grant, which is a little more detailed than just the notice of intent. So, and that's, cities and villages can do that too, if they want to apply for that, if they participate in the hazard mitigation planning, which most of them did. So it's a 75-25% cost share if they're approved for the NOI, if they're approved for the application, and if they're approved for the project. So it's a process, it's gonna take a while, it's not an overnight thing.
And that process has to be done prior to any purchase, obviously.
Right, you can't start a project before you get approval of the application.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions, Gary? It was a long 24 hours or so last week.
Yep. Still getting emails and calls and stuff, so.
Well, we survived.
Yep. Yep, that's a big thing. You know, I really push preparedness. And that was one of those incidents. We gotta be prepared for those type of incidents.
I don't know what time Gary's day started, but I know he started communicating with me about 4:30 in the morning last week, so I assume it started just a little bit before that.
So, it wasn't snowing yet in my place yet then, but I want to get that, message out there. Things were holding together pretty good. Unfortunately, we didn't have a severe cold spell during that time. We
Right.
had a lot more issues and a lot more things to set up and do. They did set up a shelter here at the auditorium for people to come in. They didn't have a whole lot of people come in. Gresham had their fire station open, and a couple other departments also had their fire stations open for people to come in, warm up, and charge their cell phones and stuff like
Okay. Thanks, Gary.
that. Yep. Thank you.
Morning, Alex.
Good morning. The York County Visitors Bureau now has an app that is up and running for Android and Apple users. It features places to shop, play, stay, and eat. There is also a York County passport that I curated for that to get both of our local residents and our tourists more involved in our community. It also includes our community calendar, as well as kind of a directory of services. I just wanted to let you know that that's up and running.
Perfect.
And you can obviously go get that app anywhere, I assume that has, and it's York, is it under York County Visitor Bureau, or what is
It
it?
is called Experience York County.
Experience York County.
Yep.
Perfect.
Very excited about it.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Okay.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Commissioners. Tristan Perry, Community Enhancement Director.
Nick Marsden, Adult Services Coordinator.
Yeah, so just a quick few updates, and one of those is officially introducing Nick Marsden as our Adult Services Coordinator. He started, this is his third week, and so we're getting stuff going, and he's getting the hang of things faster than I was expecting, I guess. So, no, it's been awesome. So, and then another quick update is we are working with YC3 to kind of move some of the operations over to the Finland building and get some stuff going for that. And then we also hired our youth caseworker as well that is starting soon. We'll come meet you guys. So.
Good. How's it going so far, Nick?
Very enjoyable. Fairly busy, learning what's going on, meeting with people, getting a game plan. I would say that people that we've wrapped around with we've got an amazing group of people that we're working with, whether it's here in the community or even locally or digitally about Lincoln. So I think we're definitely on the right path. I'm very happy, as the new guy coming in to see the progress and everything that we're going forward with. So.
Good. Didn't hardly recognize you without your black. Whole new wardrobe.
I've made a point to try to wear different colors polo because I've worn a polo for so long.
Well, I hope everything works out. Any questions of either one of them this morning?
Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Much.
I think that's pretty much all the officials. No, Nate, there you are.
Just one quick update, me as my zoning administrator, supposed to have a meeting on the 21st with the zoning board, just an update that's tentatively moved to the week after. I don't have the official date, but we'll have it for you guys. I'll give it to you, but it's not gonna be the 21st. Just heads up for you guys and anyone else listening.
Okay,
Let you guys know.
all right, thanks, Nate. Any other officials? Nobody else getting up? At this point, we'll move on to public comment. The public may step forward at this time. and give a comment if they like for a couple minutes on anything. Kim, I think you know the drill. We just ask you to introduce yourself for us, if you would, please.
Yeah. My name's Kim Regier. I live at 913 Road 17, York, Nebraska. Is solar above the law? Throughout the course of these meetings, some people and even a commissioner have said that if we impede the ability of these solar projects to progress, we are violating the rights of the landowners who want to participate. When these landowners acquired their land, whether it be by inheriting it, buying it years ago to farm, or purchasing it as a speculative venture to cash in on the solar craze, it all had one thing in common. It was zoned agricultural use. Proponents of these projects are telling us a change in zoning and a set of zoning regulations to their liking must be provided to them, or their landowner rights are being violated. If you as commissioners agree with this position, then any landowner in the county can do anything they want to with their land and expect you to change or adopt zoning laws to accommodate them. In other words, there is no law. Or does the law only apply to everything except solar? The hot wind blows. While searching online for information about the heat generated by a solar field, I found that wind, humidity, and cloud cover have a big effect. The article stated research showing it took half a mile for this heat to fully dissipate under normal weather conditions. And then you ask yourself, what is normal? Some people feel the half-mile setback is too much. I suspect that when a summer wind blows across a solar field, it isn't nearly enough. The rights of a few. The men who designed our system of government recognized that upon occasion, the rights of a few must be protected from the ambitions of the many. While some will profit by turning farmland into a solar field, there is a harmful effect on nearby residents and adjacent property owners. Noise, heat, and a complete change in their surrounding landscape top the list. But the danger of flying debris and contamination from a storm are very real. The opportunity to keep the rights of a few from being steamrolled over by NextEra Energy, OPPD, and others has been the responsibility shouldered by the men courageous enough to serve on the zoning board. The zoning regulations the board has worked so diligently to craft must be heeded in their entirety to protect the rights of these individuals. If the solar entities find these regulations difficult, if the solar entities find these regulations difficult, it does not mean the zoning board or York County commissioners are anti-solar. It just proves they made a poor decision on a site for a solar field.
Thank you, Kim.
I'm
There you go.
Jason Balaban from Lushton. Two separate points, I guess, as far as the solar zoning you guys are looking at. Multiple counties have already taken up these regulations to basically hold out solar. So that should say a lot if other counties are trying to keep them out too. It should also say something that Omaha Public Power wants to put it out here and take over our farm ground, yet they don't want to put it in their areas or find any ground in their own area where they're building these monstrous Google data centers that they need this power for, when they can build a 100-acre natural gas power plant for less money, 4% of the acres that they need for these solar farms, and a lot less environmental impact. My other was about the storm, the massive power outages that we had out in the country, and the fact that local farmers had to get out and open roads to the power company to get to these down lines, instead of the county maintainers and plows being out there opening these roads. So, curious, you know, how we were out of power in Lushing for 3 days. Had it not been for the local farmers opening up the roads Wednesday afternoon already, getting the power company Perennial out there, who had over 96% outages at one point on Wednesday. And they had over 50% of those back on within 3 days. How much longer would that have taken had it not been for the farmers out there opening the roads for them when other people who we pay our taxes for weren't? So, and then I have a question as far as, does the county have any opportunities? Are they gonna reimburse these farmers that use their own equipment, their own fuel, their own time to open these roads that they're already paying taxes to have open for them? So, that's my.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Anybody else from the public at this time? Morning.
Morning. Susan Donovan, 1312 Road 6, New York. I'm not being paid to be here. I am opposed to projects that divide rather than unite a community. I'm opposed to Omaha Public Power coming in and telling us what's best for us. They are not our public power district. This project is all about federal income tax credits. I was just in Florida where we drove by several large solar arrays. There was one thing that was missing from every one of these arrays. What were they missing? Homes. There were no homes for several miles from the arrays. The arrays were on poor soil, sandy soil, not suitable for crop production. I'm also opposed to bullying and threats of litigation, which I feel that Omaha Public Power is doing. Have you ever stood, I want to leave you with one question, have you ever stood in the middle of a 2,800-acre solar field?
Thanks, Susan.
My name's Leo Happ.
Leo, you might have to pull that, sorry,
Oh.
yeah, so everybody else can hear you. You can pull it down or whatever. There you go. Thanks, Leo.
My name's Leo Happ. I live on 709 Road E, Henderson, Nebraska. And I would like you to seriously consider the effects of this solar field on York County. There will be, as we heard last night from the guy from the university, once this is built, there's not very few jobs that this will give. And the people who build it are going to be outsiders. They'll be here till it's built and they'll be gone. And I'm not opposed to people putting solar panels on their houses or their places or their businesses because it's their power. They're going to use it. This power is going to be sold and shipped to wherever they can get the most money for it. And as far as the ag products and the sale of ag products, seed, corn, fertilizer, chemicals, and the crops, corn and soybeans, that'll be a way bigger loss than what the jobs are going to give. Now, I know there's going to be some taxes returned to the county or for the power and stuff, but the thing that really, when we've talked about the properties, people that have acreages out there and live around and have the solar panels around their places, they're going to have a hard time selling those places. And so who's going to subsidize, or who's going to reimburse them for their loss? It's not their fault. And another thing that's been brought up too is a big hailstorm or tornado, what happens to all that junk flying around. But the thing that really gets me the most, I guess, is the subsidies. I asked the guy last night from the university, who's paying these subsidies? Well, it's you and me, the taxpayer. Why should my taxes go to subsidize some company so they can build a big project and make a lot of money on it? That's just not right. I think if we're gonna distribute subsidies to somebody, and if they wanna build it, the citizens of the county should get the subsidy money, not the company. And that's, thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Morning.
Grant Jackson, 913 Road 3, McCool Junction. We're going on 5 years of this potential solar farm. I've mentioned before, if you allow this to happen, solar farm's basically half the city of York. I don't know, to me, there needs to be the class 3 and class 4 solar farms. The new survey that went out by the group that you guys are having put together, the long range plan or whatever, they kept mentioning commercial solar. There's a big difference between commercial solar and industrial solar in size. The bigger the farm, the more sound. People, like for feedlots, there's a setback based on how big the feedlot is. It should be no different for solar. People don't realize that, or forget that sight and sound are also a sense. It's not just smell like a feedlot. So the zoning committee has been sent this back, I don't know, 3-4 times, and each time they sent it back with no changes. That should tell you something right there. If you're going to have a zoning committee, you should go with what they recommend, or what's the point of having one? It's already hard enough to get people to be on it as it is, so if you're just going to ignore what they tell you, there's really no reason to have one. I don't know. There's more I want to say, but I'll just leave it at that, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Grant.
Ray White, 1306 Road 2, McCool Junction. The last time I was up here and spoke for a little bit, I asked about the political winds. I honestly thought that this thing would be dead when the political landscape changed in our country. What happens when we get halfway through this thing and the political landscape does change? And we have half of these pilings put in the ground, and we have places leveled off, skinned off, topsoil gone, wires in the ground. The infrastructure is set up for, and then DOJ comes and pulls the plug on this thing. What happens then? Does the company that's putting them in with their bonds to remove them at that point, does that occur? Or is their contract and lease null and void when DOJ kills them? I think they will. I think y'all ought to consider that. I think perhaps the commission has considered it, and I think perhaps the commission can't believe it's still here to start. But in that case, where do we go from there? What happens to that out of production farm ground? What happens to all the junk that we got to get out of there? And who's putting that bill when the company cuts them?
Thank you. Thanks, Ray. Morning, Willard.
Hi. Willard Peterson, 514 Road 13. My address is York, Nebraska. I'm a proud resident of the Bradshaw area. Thank you for your time this morning. First of all, back quite a ways, when you were talking about setbacks and so forth, I did a little visual about what some people's opinion is about solar. And for some of you that weren't here, this is a representation of setbacks and so forth in general and several people's opinions is this. And for you that weren't good at fractions, this made it half. And so anyway, that's one thing to think about. Another thing, I have followed the Lancaster County Lancaster County process of looking into a fairly large solar farm. I think it's called Panama Energy or something down by Hallam. I followed that very closely. I've been to 3 meetings of theirs, and from some comments that were this morning, it kind of brought up something, and this isn't directly to do with solar, but it is directly to do with people have talked about, zoning, what we do for zoning and whatever. And as I remember right, the consultant that you hired referred to a zoning book as a what do you call it, as a flowing or as a flowing document. And what I noticed in going to these meetings in Lancaster County is that at every one of those meetings, there has been on the agenda something with changing, tweaking, whatever you want, with some regulations, from some zoning regulations. Because it is fluid, that's the word I was trying to think of. Zoning is fluid. Things change, things, or whatever. And so it's not a written in stone document. That really kind of sunk it home for me. And I'm sure if you go to other counties, and I don't remember in my 15 plus years of coming to these meetings, but I'm going to bet that somewhere back in those meetings, you guys did some tweaking on some zoning, possibly. I can't think of a specific thing, but I find it hard to believe that it didn't happen. The other comment that I would have is not only thinking in terms of the 1/2, but there's a word that we throw around that I think used to have some meaning, but I don't know, and it's just plain common sense. Just plain common sense. Now, I could sit up here and pick out many, many, many things on a positive side if I wanted to, just as we've heard, things from the different side. I could pick all of that out, but the bottom line is that we have to, so not only the word common sense, the other one is the greater good.
Thank you, Willard. Anybody else from the public at this time? We have time for another one prior to our Board of Equalization meeting. Okay, seeing nobody get up, we will close the... Oh, I'm sorry. Missed it just there. Warren Morris.
Morris Myers, 512 Michigan, New York, Nebraska. Many of the topics have been covered, but a couple of things that questions in my mind is if OPPG sees such a value in this project, why don't they put it in their own backyard? Why are they trying to put it in our backyard instead of theirs? That's all.
Thank you, Morris. Anybody else? Okay, at this time, public comment will be closed. And we are close enough to 9 o'clock that we will recess from the Board of Commissioners, turn it over to Commissioner Rhodes as the chair of the Board of Equalization to run the Board of Equalization meeting.
Very good, thank you. We'll convene as the Board of Equalization, and roll call, please.
All right.
Here.
Urgent.
Here.
Bowman,
Here.
Overmeyer,
Here.
Brooks.
Here. Open meetings law. It's on our website. It's also in the back of our chambers here and outside in the hallway. The proof of publication and posting notice of this meeting was in the newspaper March 27th and on our website March 20th. Review and approve the minutes from the March 4th Board of Equalization meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Perfect, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes. And need to adopt today's agenda.
Move to adopt.
Very good,
Second that.
thank you. And roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Overmeyer,
Yes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes. Okay, public forum for the Board of Equalization. Anybody that would want to speak regarding this meeting can do so. Seeing none, we will close the public forum. So this meeting is for the permissive exemptions. We do have a public hearing at 9:05. We're just a few minutes before that. So we'll ask the county assessor to give us a little background on what we're looking at, and then we'll open the public hearing up.
You want to take care of those taxes corrections?
We can do that. So yeah, we're also discussing and acting on tax list corrections. I think there's 3 or 4 of them.
3.
3 of them.
Yep,
Perfect.
Kurt Waldron, York County Assessor. I have 3 of them. 2 of these, 7 and 8, are from the last time I brought these to you. I did not figure in the LB2 values on those, so I reached out to the state. No one's really had to do a tax list correction yet with the LB2 values, with that part of it. So we figured out a formula to figure out the value for that and then added those taxes. So that's 7 and 8 are, and number 9 is it's a permissive exemption that somehow got a tax statement and they shouldn't have because they were a qualified permissive exemption. So
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Can you give a brief what LB2 is? Just a reminder of what
Right.
LB2 is and why we're talking about it.
sure, LB2, that was a bill the legislature passed, oh gosh, probably back in 21, I think. And that is any farm ground, any bond issue, school bond issue passed after January 1st of 2022. Farm ground is valued at 50% of its actual value for the purposes of those school bonds. So right now in York County, Heartland Community Schools, they have 2 different bonds that fall under that LB2 law. And then the one that York Public Schools voters just adopted here in the general election, that will also be the LB2 as well.
Thanks.
And they just call it LB2 because that was the bill number that was passed.
Sure. All right.
So.
On number 9, that was one, because it seems like, there might have been one or two of their properties, but this was one that did get approved for permissive exemption,
Yes,
correct?
yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for Kurt regarding these? Seek a motion to move on these?
Move to approve the tax list corrections.
Very good, thanks.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes.
Ives.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes. All right.
Also, as far as the Turk hearing that was supposed to be this afternoon with Great Plains, the attorneys got together and that did get continued until August 6th of this year.
Oh, wow.
No Turk today.
Very good. And there was another one this afternoon, and it goes till November or something, I
Right,
think.
this morning was supposed to be Great Plains, and this afternoon was the appeal from the department on the permissive exemption for the playhouse here in town, the Sharp Playhouse, and that got continued to November. So,
All right, so at this time, we will hold a public hearing for the permissive exemption applications. There's 3 of them. Those were published March 21st. So anybody that would want to come up and speak for or against these permissive exemptions can do so at this time. Anybody wish to speak? There's 3 permissive exemptions.
Willard Peterson, 514 Road 13. My address is York. I'm a proud resident of the Bradshaw area. As far as equalization and permissive and so forth, those are all just words. Every entity in the state is simply looking for money, and they need to just call it what it is.
Very good, thanks. Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing no more, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any discussion for amongst ourselves or for Kurt regarding these permissive exemptions?
Just a note, Mr. Chairman, there's 3 for approval, and there's 2 over at Grace Children's Home that they had sent an email that they said they no longer are meeting the requirements for exemption, so they're asking that those be rescinded.
Okay. And you'll need action on those as well?
Right.
Okay.
So I think we could just, we'd like to, the board could do just a blanket approval on the 3 that I've recommended for approval, and then one motion, then a separate motion for the ones to rescind.
Okay.
For the flash.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the 3 permissive exemptions for York Community Foundation, River J. Bloom Post 1609, and Fraternal Order of Eagles.
Very good, thanks.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion regarding the approval?
Just for note, the Eagles is a portion, approval portion of theirs.
All right, roll call, please.
Obermeyer?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes. All right, so then we need to take action on the 2 from Grace Children's Home that they have asked that those be removed.
Do we need a parcel number or something on those, Kurt? Do you have a number for those?
Yep. One is 930-199-256. And the other one is 930-120-884.
Make a motion to remove the exemption on the 2 parcels that have currently been stated for Grace Children's.
Second.
Very good, thanks. Any further discussion regarding? All right, roll call, please.
Bowman?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Obermeyer?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes. All right, I think that takes care of our work here.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And we will stand adjourned.
Okay, then we'll come back in session as Board of Commissioners and start to move down the list. We will not do an executive session at this time. May need one later. I'm not 100% sure on that. Discuss and act on general assistance cases. There are none right now. Next up is review and approve the payroll and vendor claims. Everybody should have had those in their packets. Any questions? Did any questions get answered?
I did have questions. They all got answered and explained.
Anybody else? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve payroll and vendor claims.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion?
Is that Ott that seconded?
Yes. Sorry.
You ready? Roll call, Mary.
Bowman.
Yes.
Ott.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes, there are no funding transfers we're gonna do right now. I think that, the one that we're paying attention to is Tristan, the one Tristan's watching. We'll see how the funds come in this next time. We may have to do something about that one. So we're monitoring it, but everything else is setting pretty good. So next up, we have discuss and act on improvement grant for the lighting at the auditorium. I believe Alex is gonna come forward for that. I'm not sure if Cherie's gonna come forward. She's sitting back there hiding.
Yes, so we had an improvement grant come in. Oh, Alex Sadoff, 646 West 7th Street, York, Nebraska.
Cherie Fultz, I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of York. I live on 451 Florida Court.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, so we had an improvement grant come in for the external lighting on the city auditorium that you can see currently. The board did approve a 5-2 vote to fund $1,000 of that, and I will let Cherie tell you a little bit about the need and what they've done.
So during the holiday festival that a group of community members put on, they came to the city for some decorations of the auditorium. And I looked into Christmas. First of all, Christmas tree, and it was going to cost about $1,000+ for a Christmas tree that we would use, 2 weeks. Then I looked into traditional Christmas lights, and that was going to cost about $5,000 to $7,000 for a month. And then I started to brainstorm about these LED illumination lights that are currently on the auditorium. That final cost was about $4,000. Currently, I have all of it funded besides the $1,000 from the New York Visitors Bureau, and then the city would pay for the $800 of labor. So pretty much the auditorium is lit now, depending on holidays of the year or events at the city auditorium. So of course, it was red and green for Christmas. And then the CRC basketball, we actually had the championship color teams were illuminated. So the auditorium was blue for Cross County and purple for whatever the Caps County beat. I have no idea. And then it's lit for Down syndrome awareness, which is blue and gold. We did Mardi Gras, that brought in a lot of people for Mardi Gras colors. So we just continue to plan on changing the colors depending on holidays or events that are at the auditorium. Seems to be a real hit within the community. I would have never expected some exterior lights making such a dramatic impact that I get stopped everywhere. Actually just got stopped in the lobby of the community center with a patron coming up to me and saying how much she loves seeing the lights from her living room. I have had out-of-town people come to me after events at the auditorium that say this is awesome. So when the Mardi Gras had people from Beatrice coming, they were taking pictures of it because they wanted to go home and tell their community what they're doing. So big hit, and so I'm asking for approval of $1,000 to help the remaining cost.
So it was an interesting discussion that day, because I sit on the Board of Visitors Bureau, and I was one of the two that did vote against this project, mainly because I look at these projects and I look at our bylaws and how they're written, and the projects that come in typically need to be approved prior to the project being done. The funding needs to be approved. And I think it's a great project. I think the lights are great. I just didn't think it fit the overall of what the improvement fund is supposed to be. So that doesn't mean that it's a bad project. It doesn't mean anything with the city. It's just that's my belief of how I interpret our rules at the visitors committee. So it's up to this board though to approve all of the improvement funds, not the advertising funds. So that's why it come in front of us. And there was some negotiations, meaning the ones that were for and against. That's why it got down. The original application was for $1,800, and it was down to $1,000 by a motion. So it's up to this board. What's your feelings? You got any other questions? I think we can say that one of the major donors was Trailblazer, helped out.
Tallgrass.
Tallgrass. There we go. Tallgrass helped out with that.
Came in with $2,200.
Yeah. So it's got support. And the fund has got plenty of money. but
Even after the Henderson Mennonite Heritage
Yeah.
Park, plenty
it's
of
got
money.
plenty of money.
I think it was a smart move to go with the LEDs rather than just seasonal. That way it can use all types of theater stuff.
Something to keep in mind also, this is our largest meeting space in the whole county, is the city auditorium.
And it was just open.
Yeah, for their emergency.
We should have been red. I thought about that. It's open, it's red for emergencies. It was so beautiful.
Entertain a motion one way or the other unless anybody has any questions.
I'll do the motion and then we can vote and find out. I think it would be okay to do it. City gave 800 in labor. If we can give 1,000, I hate to go there, but I will move that we approve the $1,000 to help pay for the lighting at the city auditorium. Is that the right way to say it?
The grant application.
Yeah, grant application.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I'm on the fence. I don't know. When I first saw it come through, my initial thought was it was probably not a project that I was going to back. I think it is. I think it's an awesome project. I think it's a great. I'm a fan of illumination, of lighting, and so I think it's a nice addition to the auditorium. So the place I'm at is, are these funds? Is this the place to use the funds? Now it's $1,000. It's not. We heard already the fund is fairly robust, so it's not like we're down scraping the bottom of the barrel. But would these funds be more, what's the right word? Would they be better used for an entity that is needy? I guess where I'm going with this, the project's over. It's been done. It's been paid for. So would these funds be better served on a project that needs this $1,000 to complete the project, to actually fund the project? So that's kind of where that's why I'm on the fence.
Thank you, Daniel. Anybody else?
I guess, a question for Shuri, if we don't approve this, how are we gonna pay for it?
The city's general fund will cover it. Reason why, I actually submitted this in December, and the January one, or the January and February one got canceled due to weather, so which is why. So I actually submitted it when the project was being started, and it's just taken me this long to get the request for funding. This whole project started like within 2 weeks. So I actually found the picture of Union Station in Kansas City, showed it to an electrician in town and said, can you do this? And within 2 weeks it was done. So the timeline was, let's get it done for the holiday festival, which was at the beginning of December, and figure out how we're gonna pay for it afterwards. When I say the general fund, this was not a project within the general fund that I was planning on. This was in my head better than buying a $1,000 Christmas tree to use for 2 weeks. Now that we can use this year round in the years to come. So that's kind of timeline wise, I agree. The project is complete, but initially it wasn't complete when I submitted the grant application. Does that answer it?
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Mary.
Hart,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yep.
Bowman, Groves,
No.
Obermeyer.
No. Thank you, guys. Next up, discuss and act on letters of support for York County broadband projects. This was written up I assume Daniel had a little hand in it.
Yeah,
Gary
Mary.
had a little
Yeah.
hand in it. Um,
Yeah, between myself and Mary in the clerk's office, we came up with some verbiage, sent it to the county attorney's office for their review, and this is where we ended up. So basically, we came up with something that showed our support for broadband projects in York County. I think this letter accomplishes that. It does not specifically say, you know, full support for a specific company, but that we are, if there's companies that want to work within York County and they're reliable, reputable companies, we are fully in support of them putting in fiber in York County to our rural residents. And so that was kind of the intent behind this letter. I believe there's currently one company that has asked us to send a letter of support for three of the projects areas, three of the project areas in York County. We've talked to others that are considering it but have not yet asked us for that support. But I think that this letter accomplishes and shows our support for those broadband projects.
in the paragraph 2, and I think we talked about it briefly, when it to enhance broadband access in our rural communities. Are we meaning our rural residents?
Right.
Or should we spell it out for our rural residents and communities or something like that? Or do we feel comfortable with just this wordage here?
Sure. Yep, we had talked about that. I think one version did have that changed.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's. I have no problem changing that to rural residents. Most of our communities do have some type of fiber, but to your point, maybe it would be better to say our rural residents and communities. That would cover everything.
Right.
I like that verbiage. If anybody has thoughts on that.
That makes sense to me. It says like all residents in the other spots, but
Right.
just to make it more clear.
And they're not planning. I mean, with some of these, they are typically rural, but they're getting close enough to the communities that if the communities decide to come out and invite them in or grab them in, that's what they're going to do. So I think it's a great idea to have those in there too. And to my knowledge, yes, we still just have one that is asked for a letter of support, and that was Nick's link on 3 projects.
Do we as a board have a thought? Do we want to, I guess my thought would be to approve this letter for Next Link. Or do we want to approve it more broad, that if a company comes and asks, that we don't have to come back in front of the board?
I think it'd be a good idea to bring it back publicly.
I agree.
You know, when they ask,
Yep.
you know, that way we talk about it just a little bit. Because this is just 3 of them, and there was combined total of 10 or 11 projects throughout the county. So I think it'd be a great idea for them to approach us.
Yep. I would make a motion that we approve the letter of support for Next Link and York County broadband projects, making the verbiage changes that we discussed.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Brooks,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Odd,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. The next 2, first one is, this is one that typically we do on a yearly basis. It just slipped by me and the clerk this year is discuss an act on authorizing chairman to sign state of emergency declarations for 2025. Typically, those declarations come in as they did last week. They're wanting the paperwork as soon as we can get it so the governor can compile it, make his state of emergency declaration and go on. So as you see by the next one, I went ahead and signed it. We'll ratify that signature, hopefully. But this then gives the chairman the authorization to sign them for the year of 2025. Any questions regarding that? Entertain a motion?
Is that for both the ratification and the?
No, the ratification will be its own. I wanted it separate. So this would just be the signed emergency declarations for the year.
Make a motion that we authorize chairman to sign state of emergency declarations in the year 2025.
Thank you, Daniel.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes. And this will be to ratify, this next one, we discuss and act on giving the chairman authorization to ratify that signature that was signed for last week's storm. It was signed the day after, the afternoon after. The emergency manager got us the paperwork, and we put it on letterhead and sent it back away that afternoon. So this is just ratifying that signature.
Motion to ratify signature.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes. And next up, discuss an act on crime commission grants. Kristen? Good morning again.
Remember, this is just quick one pager. I'll try not to keep adding to the binder that I get you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, Tristan Perry, Community Enhancement Director. And so I just handed you guys out that one pager before jumping into the JS grant. This is what the Crime Commission got back to us on the last two grants that we applied for, and so the total was $110,305. And so this is a contingency response. It really is just telling me to put everything into one budget for them and then send it back. And so I did that, and it has been approved already. So they're going to work on getting the official award to us, and so just waiting on that for those two grants. So, any questions on that before I jump in JS?
We had a conversation about those two grants and the verbiage that was on that one. Did you go back and look to see if that was in there on any of the other ones that I just missed?
I did, and it did have it just kind of the same section. So.
Due to, if the legislature pulls a plug, there's no funding.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did say that, and then I look at our guidebook that they had given us a while back, and it kind of has the same verbiage there too.
Okay. All right. Yep, I just missed it in times past. I don't know why it was glaring this year. But.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so we got the 110,305. And so, as we do every year that I've been here, what we don't cover with the first two grants, we kind of look to cover with the JS grant. And so, the total this year that I've put into the application is that $44,419. So, personal expenses, fringe benefits, and then some program expenses. So, they had a pretty quick turnaround. It's due tomorrow. They let us know about the two other grants just a week ago. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and just looking to get it approved to submit by 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay. Any questions for Tristan on any of the above?
Move to approve the submission of the Crime Commission grant application.
Thank you, Andy.
Second.
Thank you. Joe, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Overmeyer.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, do we have to take action on those approvals, or we've done that and we're on, like on the ones that you did get awarded?
So
Do we?
We'll just take action on the award that comes through.
Okay.
And so.
So we don't.
Yeah, usually
Okay.
we're fast
All right.
on that. And so, yeah, this is, the contingency is what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I just seemed like there might have been. I don't remember exactly, but once we're approved, it seemed like we had to then accept the award or something.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
So, yeah, that's still to come.
Okay. Very good. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
It's not counting.
That brings us up to discuss an act on zoning. Does anybody need a break? Or jump right in? All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then we will go on
for a
zoning call.
I've been up at 4 o'clock. Because that's when I wake up. Because Carla goes to work at 5. So usually about 10 o'clock I get a nap. Seriously. If I'm not working, then I wait till after lunch, then I take it.
It'll be back, guarantee it. How's Garden Shed doing?
falling in on itself right now. Never ever lived or anything like that before. Figured now it's better. It took about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The time we walked out, we went in the house. Jerry got a butcher knife. I went to the bathroom. He told me you need to take the knives to the shop to sharpen them.
Sure.
Ricky started making weird sounds and it exploded.
From the snow.
No, we had a hurricane explosion.
Oh, Jesus.
The whole greenhouse was gone. That big building in back.
Theirs was the one that went boom.
Who hooked up the propane?
Brand new bottle. Just put it in there.
Oh, this is just a normal switch bottle out for the bottle. Like a grill. Except that heats.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they exploded the bottle.
Oh yeah. The whole thing blew up.
What did the fire department?
Oh yeah.
Did the,
Oh, the whole thing was. I mean, it was a fireball.
Did they say it was in? What did they say caused it? Did they know?
Yeah, they pulled it out. It was flat as the tank was flat as pancakes.
So the tank
pulled it out.
Tank itself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the fire didn't the gas inside the bottle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was just trying to figure out what
It
caused
blew
it.
sky high. But we got lucky.
Did you open it? Had you opened it and started it?
Yeah, it was connected to a little tiny little space here. It was cold out. We've done it for years.
Yeah.
It was barely even running. It was barely even turned on. Like been like
just blew the whole
hooked to a grill. Oh, the fact where you walked out of
You
there.
wouldn't expect your grill to blow up, would you?
Never, huh? I'm never touching the grill ever again. No, oh God, you're right. No, the fact we didn't get killed in that. We were both in there, yeah.
Somebody went. I know somebody said no, you
But luckily it blew straight up instead of out. Because if it would have been, there's people down on South Lincoln driving, I know they saw the fire, they saw it in the sky. Yeah, that was not cool. Guess I'm gonna figure it out.
I got it.
There's
a bus coming
I just broke my glasses. Oh. are the only buses marked.
Tracks are.
For him than it is for me.
No,
Hey, at least I got a little bit of a warning.
nobody's coming for you.
For me,
That's too bad. So the bus is barreling in and you're grabbing, so, like I said, at least you know what's coming.
that's you. Did you talk to Nate at all?
I didn't, no.
We're just gonna play that. Yep, we reserved it. What's that?
Depends on how many rifles come out.
I'll be here all day, so.
All day?
All day. Until about 3 o'clock.
We won't be here all day.
Just to kind of explain the vote or whatever, I'm gonna try and grab some.
There's the bus.
Yeah.
There's the bus. Okay, where'd Joe go?
Hard to tell.
Got married? I mean, you could do this.
It was just something that Andy brought up this morning. No, it just used. Right. I know.
Oh, and also.
I know that. I know. I figured out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's something wrong with it. It's brand new.
I've got a few here.
You have to text it.
That's just the option.
Oh, okay.
But there won't be any expressions.
Well, we do live, it'll be okay.
No,
I know.
I shouldn't
And
joke
in the
about
end, we
it.
got lucky because it went straight out.
Oh,
the-
yeah.
And not out. When it went out, it would have really done a number on our house,
Yeah.
everybody else's house.
And no action.
I don't even, I can't even.
How big a box was it?
It's just scary, regular girl.
Okay, we'll come back into session. We're all lit up. I assume you're back on.
It should be.
Where did Leroy
We've
go?
lost Leroy at the moment, but
The line was too long.
There was
a line.
right.
He should be coming back here directly.
Sorry.
Hi, Leroy.
I got stuck in the.
Okay. Last meeting, I kind of went through kind of a synopsis of where we've been in the last 3 years. And as it's stated in public hearing today, that more than once, that our zoning board has sent the regulations, which I believe we all should have, back to us for approval or denial. And so actually what's in front of us right now is those zoning regulations.
It's at home.
So at this point in time, I would say before we do anything else, I'd entertain a motion to accept, or however we want to do it, the regulations that were, once again, were talked about by this board last May, sent to them last June of '24, and then 25 of this year, they were sent back to us. There was no changes. The public hearing was held, and that's where we're standing. Now, if we do any changing, it would be my opinion that we'd have to go through the public hearing again. It would only make good sense that we have to do that. But that's where we're at right now. That's how I thought I'd kick the conversation off.
One of the, throughout the course of discussion on solar regulations, it's been brought up multiple times that anything that we do approve must meet the current comprehensive plan. I believe that was wrote in 2015. We are currently going through that review process. However, I don't foresee this board changing that comp plan extensively. So part of thinking through what's right for solar zoning, looking at the current comp plan, just looking at some of the verbiage in there, York County should continue to be dominated by agriculture production, specifically crop and livestock production. Loss of prime cropland to non-cropland uses should be avoided as much as possible. This is regarding livestock facilities. There's verbiage in there to minimize impacts on neighboring uses, particularly residential uses. Adequate separation distances are required. Now, we're not necessarily talking about livestock in this case, but we are talking about a change to what's out there, and we have verbiage in our comp plan that states that to minimize impacts on neighboring uses, particularly residential uses, adequate separation distances are required. So it's known that we should have some sort of setback. Continuing on in that land use section, to minimize the loss of prime cropland, any future development of commercial or industrial uses should be encouraged to find locations in or near municipalities in the county. Now, we've heard the size of solar arrays can be quite large, up to possibly half of a current municipality in this county. To find a place within the city limits of any of our communities for that type of piece would be difficult. Now, it goes, there's two schools of thought. Should solar be allowed? Should it not be allowed? Should we as a board have the right to tell somebody they can't do something on their land? We do currently have zoning in place. We are a county with zoning, and so there are restrictions on what can be done. Now, what we're looking at today is a change. It's new. It's different from what is currently out there, and so to balance that, it's up to us to figure out what that balance is. So we've all had multiple conversations on both sides of the fence of I don't care if you live out there, you only own 4 acres, you shouldn't be able to tell the next 40 acres, 160, whatever it is, what they can or can't do on their land. But we have, in our comp plan, it's very well stated that rural York County is traditional agriculture. So all of those acreages out there have there is a what's the right word to say, a reasonable expectation that when they moved out there, traditional agriculture, whether that be row crop, whether that be cow-calf, whether that be hog operations, soybeans, corn, wheat, there was a reasonable expectation that that's what they would see. So I think that in my opinion, reading the comp plan, looking at what we're facing, we have to come up with something where we're not greatly changing that expectation. And so that's where I think the Planning and Zoning Board's mind was when they set the setbacks where they did. And so I know I've taken up a lot of time to word salad some of that, but that's kind of where my brain is at currently.
Okay. Others?
I would completely agree with Daniel's take on what our comprehensive plan says. I think that's, I just don't want to repeat exactly what he said, but that's really where my head is at on this, almost exactly. We're an agricultural county. That is our bread and butter. When people do buy acreages, they're buying acreages to live in the country, not next to an industrial compound of any sort. Did sit through the meeting last night. If anything, that meeting just solidified my stance that farm ground in York County needs to stay farm ground. I don't think any action of this board should be to go against the action of our zoning board, which we have asked to take their time for no pay, and they have on multiple times sent back the same document we have before us today. Randy, you did mention there's a bunch of turnover on that, but one thing did stay consistent, and that was the document they presented to us. So I would like to make the motion to approve the zoning regulations set forth by our zoning board with that, not setbacks.
Your motion would be to approve everything that's there in the regulations currently, okay?
I have some changes I would like to make or discuss. If anyone.
Will we discuss it if somebody seconds it? Or do you have
It
to
will need
vote?
a second to go on.
There will be, discussion.
There'll be more discussion.
Then I'll second it so we can discuss it
Okay.
more.
All right. So we do have a motion and a second to adopt what the planning commission has sent to us. Joe, I think you wanted to take off on some discussion.
Yes, I did have some changes I want to make. Some of them are small, some of them are big. I don't know which one we want to tackle first, but I can maybe start with some of the small ones. In our definitions, if you go down to T, it goes to transmission line. And we use the words transmission lines to define transmission lines. That's a circular definition. I don't know if that's what exactly we want there. I think we can use a different definition instead. There's other places, electrical ones that define these. So I'd be in favor of changing that, and I do have a definition ready if we want to do that. As far as starting with class 1 solar farms, so this isn't like solar farms, it's like little small installations that people put on their smaller properties. I don't know if it's necessary for us to say located on a lot or parcel of at least 2 acres. I don't know if it's necessary for the setbacks to be 108 feet for such a small thing, especially considering buildings do not have the same setback there. I was looking through our zoning, I believe it's 58 feet from the center line of the road for other buildings. So if someone wanted to put this on a barn or a house or whatever else, they wouldn't be able to if it was too close to the road with these current setbacks. So I'd like to see that changed. That's under the class 1 setbacks. So that's just for the small projects. This was something that was brought up by our consultant for class 2. And I wasn't sure if this is, I mean, obviously they felt it was necessary to bring this up, but I wasn't exactly sure what this means. But it says permitted for accessory use within the district. Does that mean it can't be used for primary use or anything like that? I'm not exactly sure. And if that's intentional, that's one thing I would like to know, like why that is the case, why it's listed as accessory. And that's fine. We can discuss that. If anyone's got anything on that. But I'd, be fine with making that, primary and accessory, whatever you need. Just, I don't know if that needs to be specified as just accessory unless that was intentional. And then, so there's that. There's a couple other verbiage changes in the class 2. Well, there's a missing, actually I don't know if this is, I think this is missing. This sentence sounded weird to me. Under the visual screening, I believe this was the same for all of them actually. It says alternative fence materials alternative fence and materials being used for screening must be approved the zoning administrator. I think it should be approved by the zoning administrator, not approved the zoning administrator, because that doesn't make sense grammatically. Alternative fence and materials being used for screening. Would that be fence materials or fence? I don't know if we want to have that be fence and materials or just fence materials, if that makes more sense. But for sure, I think that adding by there and under C, section C of the visual screening, I think that would be good. As well as under visual screening, and this for each class that has visual screening required, it says seedling are not accepted. I don't know if we want to change that to seedlings, if that's more accurate grammatically. There's a couple of random things, like there are periods at the end of sections that would just be color-coded red. I don't know if that matters or not. However, I would say that we probably want to adjust that in the document. And then I guess I might as well tackle it. I would like to make some bigger changes as well. Other than those, I think that the current setbacks as we have them are unreasonable. Obviously, the point of zoning is we do want to balance property rights of both those that are signed on and those that aren't, and we want to address each of the concerns. We've heard about heat, we've heard about glare, all those things, and I do think that the zoning board has done a pretty good job of hitting everything and more that could possibly be a concern. Some of those things I think have been a little bit unreasonable. I would actually like to get rid of class 4 in general and consolidate that with class 3. Whether that means we need to change the class 3 setbacks or make some sort of compromise on that, that is completely fine. But I think as it is right now, I don't think there's a good reason why class 4 needs to be so much larger than class 3. It's the same type of equipment, it's just over more area. So I don't know why all of a sudden it's such a big jump there. So there'd be, some changes with that, which would include, if we were to come to an agreement based on that, involving removing some words there in a section and altering some setbacks. And then this might have been in all of them, but I know it's in class 3 here. It says on the setbacks from participating property, says no setback is required between adjacent residents or property participating, comma, in the same aggregated project. I don't know if that's supposed to be a comma there. or if it's just with the property participating in the same aggregated, project. And then we've got, oh, those are the same changes as the other ones. So that's, okay, that's the biggest one is I would like to consolidate those things. If the board is against that, there's some other changes that I would like to make to class 4, maybe if that doesn't change, such as under the, is it the requirements? Under number 9 and number 20 under class 4 are both talking about electromagnetic communication interference. They're basically referencing the same thing, but number 9 is like a little more specific about it. So I would recommend we get rid of number 20 on that if we would like to keep class 4. And number 21 and 22 as well, I don't think those things are necessary. There's with the setbacks that we decided for the other things, I don't know why we'd need to have a greater setback for the confined animal feeding use. We already have pretty big setbacks on some of those, but I don't think 1,000 feet is a necessary one. We could obviously discuss something else if needed. And then under, once we're getting closer to the end here, under L, for which section is it? Section 1508, L talks about providing information regarding the flora and fauna officially listed, threatened and endangered species, as well as an avian study based on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. What does that mean? What is an avian study based on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service? Maybe we could change that to like their way of, like, if they have some sort of guidance on that, change that to not just be based on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but based on their guidelines or their requirements, that sort of thing. I don't think that's kind of a vague sentence, in my opinion. That's under L. And then I guess I had some questions. Oh, yes, also there's another verbiage change where I added to a sentence. The end of ground and site, or the end of site shall be enclosed. That's under section 1510 B. I did have some questions overall about some of the different requirements once we get into the applications and the different things that must be provided and the different funds and things. And obviously I understand where a lot of these are coming from. However, the certain way they are right now with the escrow fund and everything, are we able to, is the county able to facilitate that workload, I guess? Does that put too much workload on the county there? Or obviously there is money involved with the maybe hiring people that they have to provide if we need to hire extra people in order to do a lot of this, maybe paperwork and other things to make sure that's all lined up correctly. But I was just I wasn't exactly sure how that works, if that would be a burden on the county. So those are my main ones. There's a disagreement between the table at the bottom and the class 1. It says 75 feet front setback on the table, but it says 108 feet on the class 1. So those are a disagreement, and I think it should probably just be whatever the building setback is for those, because these are small installations on someone's property that power their own houses. So I guess that's where I'm at. I think those are all reasonable changes. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
So a lot of what you have, Joe, is some is grammatical.
Yeah, some of it's
cleaning
just
up the grammar, and then others are actual changes that
some are big changes.
yeah, you would like to see to it. Okay.
I don't know, the one that just jumps out at me that I can address fairly quickly. The class 4, the 21 and 22, the confined animal feeding unit and the intensive, that was a fairly large discussion with the planning and zoning board. There is, so mainly that was added for confined, basically feedlots that don't have a dwelling. So it's just a feedlot in the county. So feedlots are they are restricted on where they can build with setbacks, and so these were added in there to align with those setbacks that feedlots are subject to as well. And so that's why those two paragraphs were added.
And I guess the 1,000 feet, it's from the confined animal thing. Which
Correct.
Would make,
right.
Because they've got their own setbacks.
Correct.
So,
So it was more.
Any other
It's just
discussion?
necessary or not.
but
On his setbacks?
No, just any other discussion?
I will say that all this time, everybody I think knows I've been trying to find a spot between OPPD and the people that live out there that don't want any of it, and them that want theirs. And it's going to be, there is no middle space. They want what they want, and they want what they want. And I asked them the question about numbers, and if we could get it smaller. Well, it's never small enough on this side. It's never big enough on this side. That's not worth it. So, and I've talked to several of you, as you know, and I've read all the letters, and I've read all the papers and everything. So, it's difficult to be sitting here, so we get paid the big bucks, as you know. But we can't meet as a group and discuss this and come up with a consensus of what we want. So you're going to get a vote that might be 3-2 or 4-1, or we have to do something else because we keep voting no.
It might be 5-5.
It might be
5-0.
Might be 5-0. He said. I doubt that. But anyways, I would say that I would have to err a little bit on the side of caution because I just am not positive, and I've told different groups and different people I don't think this is a solution or that's a solution. I think this solution, but they can't do that right now yet. And I think you've all heard me say that. I'm a big nuclear fan, but that's not coming for 15 more years, and hopefully it'll be small enough so that doesn't take up too much room and space. But the comp plan is the comp plan, and we do have a planning and zoning board. So I want to thank everybody. These guys won't, maybe, but maybe they will, for everything you told us, because otherwise we wouldn't have even thought about this. It's been 4 years. I've been here 1. So just so you know, only 2 people up here have been here for that lovely ride. So it's very difficult for someone who's just been here a year, someone who's been here for a month, 2-3 months. But that's all I got to say about it.
Okay. Reasonable expectations. And I think some of you were at the meeting that was held last night. I think he did a good job. I think he stayed, as you would say it, on the fence. He stayed in the middle of the road for the most part. But those reasonable expectations, just like the data that he supplied last night, it depends upon the circle that you live in and what your reasonable expectations are. I will tell you that I feel like we need to have some form of zoning for solar. Now, these projects will still come in front of us as a conditional use permit, and at that point in time, if we have reasonable issues with it, is where we would deny the project. We've learned a lot in this last year. We've seen counties do that. We've seen counties approve, and then they went into litigation. We've seen counties that litigation is getting maybe towards the end. As we all know, the Knox County decision was handed down to us. It's not solidified yet, but it's a piece of it that gave us a little bit of information. But as far as what is in front of us today, my feelings hasn't changed as far as the setbacks that I proposed last year in May or June when we did this. I think that setbacks like these are a project killer. They're not reasonable zoning that we could put forward. I just believe that that's the way these were set up. That's not taken away from our zoning board. Our zoning board met, and they met a lot. I just happen to disagree with them on that. And when they met last and sent it to us, I know that Mr. Gruber, when he made the motion to send it back, he said, send it back to the guys, and they can do with what they want. And it was all agreed on, by them to do that. So it is in front of us. I do disagree with the way it's presented now. I don't know that I 100% align with what Joe's saying, but I think some changes are in order. What does that mean? It means that we almost go back to the drawing board and negotiate what those changes are, unless this gets a 3-2 vote today, and then we're done and we wait and see where everything falls down at. So I won't propose anything yet until hearing what the board decides on the motion in front of them. So, any other discussion? Go ahead, Joe.
I would add one more thing. Daniel does bring up a very good point about reasonable expectations. I think that was worded pretty well. However, I also think that if you're an American, you also have a reasonable expectation that you've got rights to your life, liberty, and property. And so I do think that property rights are a huge issue with this. So I do think we want to make sure that we are protecting your right to do what you want.
And to tag on to that, I think these regulations protect the people that are not participating. So I like how these regulations align with what we do on the livestock side that is in our comp plan, a priority of this county. There's nowhere in our comp plan a priority of our county is to add industrial complexes, whatever they are, into our landscapes.
And obviously we disagree on how these things protect property rights, so we'll see.
I did have a conversation with Marvin at the end of last week, with John that works for Marvin, and I asked him to address the two questions that were brought up at the last meeting, whether we should be doing this now or wait for the end of the comp plan, and he did acknowledge that when they hired on to us last May, they knew that our solar zoning was forefront and they had no problem with proceeding that way, and that the fact that their comp plan currently doesn't state it, but the fact that we are working on our comp plan and going to merge the two will make it permissible in their minds. So that was a conversation that I had with John at the end of last week. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call please, Mary.
Bowman.
Yes.
Odd.
Yes.
Burgess.
No.
Gross.
Yes.
Obermeyer.
No. Okay, motion passes. There will be undoubtedly, I mean, this is done with this document for right now, but I think there are some things, as Joe brought up, that during the comp process, there's some things that needs to be addressed. The grammar can be addressed whenever. But I agree with you in the class ones, some of those, hopefully during the comp process, some of those should just be plain exempt. Somebody that's doing a net metering on their house or something like that shouldn't be under those type of restrictions. There we are. So, that said, we are down to committee reports on today's agenda. Anybody got anything to report?
I'll start. Exciting this week. In the roads department, we've decided to test drive some tracking equipment on our fleet. What this will do will give us a little bit of clarity as to what's going on in the country, what work's getting done. Biggest thing is I think the efficiencies we'll gain through this are absolutely astronomical. this type of a system's been adopted by two of our largest co-ops in the area. They've both seen dramatic increases in efficiencies by knowing where their equipment and their people are at all times. I think this will lend to faster responses in disasters, better utilization of our equipment, better, the trickle down of it goes on and on. So we're trying 2 trial units that the company we decided to take a look at are giving us for free for the next 2 months. So going into budget season, we'll know whether or not we want to spend money on this. To me, I've been involved with this type of technology for the last 10 years. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. It'll pay for itself first month for the whole entire year. So gonna be putting 2 of those units on vehicles. I'm hoping this week with the rain. I'm gonna help the roads department with setup since I've done this before in previous life. The other thing is lead to the safety committee. I do want to take a look at, and probably going to need to talk to Gary, both Garys on this. Is I do think one of our greatest assets in our county is our farmers. I do believe that they make a heck of a difference during blizzards and other storm events. I do think there's some sort of compensation that we need to be able to provide for their services. Now, if there's going to be some strings with some insurance issues and some of that, we're going to have some hurdles we're going to have to cross to get there. But we at least need to start taking a look at that, because our fleet, we can't afford our fleet to grow, and it's hard to fill the seats we already have today in our roads departments. So why not incentivize the people that are out there that already have the equipment? Do not continue to duplicate assets in the county. Let's just help producers that are putting their time and their fuel and their tractors. Let's find a way to incentivize that. And I think the net result is better everything for our communities. That's what I got right now.
Okay, Joe?
I had a couple committee meetings. There's one right after the board meeting 2 Tuesdays ago there. Went down to Geneva for Blue Valley Community Action. There's quite a few things going on with them. They presented their annual report on everything they've done to try to show the impact they've made. They have some projects that are moving real fast in Wymore and Geneva both. They're ahead of schedule on those, so that's nice to see in government and government-related things ahead of schedule. They are working on keeping a little bit higher cash funds just to be prepared in case of anything with if there's delays in funding, because there was uncertainty for a little while and moving forward. However, because of the services they provide, they're not super worried about federal changes actually impacting what they do at Blue Valley. So I guess I would just I'd like to say a couple things that were on the annual report. They've served, well, these are just the amount of individuals that they served. It's over 6,084, I believe is the number they have here. And that number is pretty big on itself. However, many of these people used several different services, whether that was maybe food banks or housing related things, or a lot of education things. But I think the best number that they have here is the amount of people that actually achieved the outcome that we were looking for, as far as whether they were able to get employment or receive, education or get some sort of things like that. It was up to 98% of those 6,084 people. 98% of them were able to achieve an outcome that Blue Valley was trying for, and so I think that is pretty impressive. And so that was pretty good. We're gonna try to. They have a new objective of trying to get the news out a little better, because I didn't really know what Blue Valley was even before came to this, but work on just letting people know what things are available. We'll be doing more in the future with that as well. And then they also feel like communications up the chain with the federal government and things. You may hear things in different newspapers and whatever else and news about different issues with the federal government, but that's not what they've had so far. It's mostly been pretty good communication and explaining what the purpose of these programs are and how they help people and how they help the communities. So that's where we are with Blue Valley. And as far as my next meeting was Thursday there, and I went to Lincoln, met with Southeast Nebraska Development District. They were going over their audit, so that's super exciting. They are they actually have a website that I would encourage you to check out. If you just go to Send's website and you click on their Our Story tab, they have a new map on there that can show you all the different projects going on in your county or in each different county and community. So I think that's worth a look. They're updating it, and they'll start adding in more historical projects, but right now they've got everything in the last 5 years, the active projects that are going on. So there's a lot of that's been going on, and I think we're one of the only development districts that has like a semi-decent website right now. So they've got a team working on all that and get that set up. They're looking at I guess one thing that they wanted to make clear was that they kind of have over the past few years, they've had sort of a mindset change in some ways where they felt that it wasn't sustainable in the long run to, as Nebraskans, be, telling them to cut, government spending and all this while also expecting it to not trickle down to their own agency with the grants they get. So they're working on shifting over to more and more of sustaining themselves through their own revenue rather than being solely reliant on grants, which I think is a smart move, especially for Nebraska. There's funding cuts that you don't want to just be caught by surprise. It's like, that's going to happen. We live in Nebraska. So I guess that's what I have for those.
Okay, thanks, Joe. We went through an audit last week too, by the way. It is fun. Leroy, got anything?
My meetings are the next couple of days, but I'll just echo the grants getting cut for everyone. Different groups that we help, the first thing they tell us is we're getting less money. Every single one of them, I believe, is telling us we're getting less money. So all that grant money that's providing all these services are drying up. And one of my main ones is Region 5 and a PACE. And they've moved buildings, changed who they're renting from, done everything they can to try and save money. So just so you know, grant money is going away too. It just is.
Daniel?
As you already mentioned, we went through and talked audit last week, so fun and exciting stuff. YCDC full board met last week, so good information shared there. And the tech committee will meet immediately following this board meeting. Main topic of discussion there is going to be our broadcast, our live presentation. Facebook is changing some of their policies, and so we need to discuss if that makes sense for us to continue on that platform, switch to a different platform, or come up with our own way to broadcast direct to the website or something like that. So some discussion there, and that's pretty what I have to share at this point.
I already mentioned we had visitors last week. The audit that we sat through, audit came out pretty good this year. Typically there's a couple things we get nicked on, and that's just because of being understaffed and not being able to do certain things. So everything looked good. It seems like we are always up against kind of a deadline when we get our audit done, and we was again this year. We got everything submitted and turned in by yesterday, so that was a good thing. The other thing I want to touch on, and Sheriff is standing in the back of the room yet, we heard the comment during public testimony. I can tell you that I'm on the phone, as I mentioned before, with the emergency manager pretty early in the morning. Our people on that day, when you get a snowstorm like what we had, it brings out the best in some and it brings out the worst in some others. Patience is something in our country that's completely went away, and our people were out that day We struggled to get to some people that were in need, but we finally did get to them that were in need. And I also put out a post last week too, and thanking everybody that has the means to help us out, that they do what they do, and they do it not because they're getting paid. They do it because they're good people, and they do it for their neighbors and for the right reasons. But we were out that day. Not all of our people is local, so it was hard for them to get to work, as it was hard for anybody to get around. And we got equipment stuck that day. The sheriff's department got stuck a few times that day. It was a mess, but thankfully the next day the sun came out and the snow went away pretty quickly. But I'm pretty proud of what we accomplished. Our call center, we have a meeting this weekend or this Friday, and I'll get to hear the amount of phone calls that they received, but it was just nonstop. And they're receiving calls, why isn't the power on, or different things like that. So everybody stepped up, and I'm proud to be part of a county that does that. So beyond that, I don't have any. Do you have anything to add for today? Okay. All right. Anybody else? One remainder? Or adjourn?